Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 65, top of the page. The words Chatas Of Shimalako, Shlo Shma. Or in the case of a bird sin offering, where one pinched its nape, not for the sake, and squeezed out its blood with the intent of consuming it or burning it beyond its designated time. Chatas Of Shimalako, Shlo Shma, Mitzah Adam, Chutzes Mano. או שמלך חוצץ מנו מצד דמו שלא לשמה, או שמלך מצד אדם שלא לשמה, זהו שלא קרב המתיר כמצווה זו. Okay. Or in the case of a bird sin offering where one pinched its nape, not for its sake, and squeezed out its blood with the intent of consuming it or burning it beyond its designated time. Or in a case where he pinched its nape with the intent to consume it or burn it beyond its designated time and squeezed out its blood, not for its sake, or in a case where he pinched its nape and squeezed out its blood, not for its sake. That is a case of a bird offering whose permitting factor is not sacrificed in accordance with its mitzvah. Lechol kezayit bachutz, kezayit lemachal. כזית למחה, כזית בחוץ, כחצי זית בחוץ, כחצי זית למחה, כחצי זית למחה, כחצי זית בחוץ, פסול ואין בו כרס. If one pinched the nape of a bird and squeezed out his blood with the intent to eat an olive bulk of the offering outside its designated area, and an olive bulk the next day, or an olive bulk the next day and an olive bulk outside its designated area, or half an olive bulk outside its designated area and half an olive bulk the next day, or half an olive bulk the next day and half an olive bulk outside its designated area, the offering is disqualified and it does not include liability to receive karet. Amar Yehuda Zeklal, Im machshevet hazman, kadma la machshevet hamakom, pigul v'chayavin ala kores, v'im machshevet hamakom kadma la machshevet hazman, pasul v'ein bo kores. Chachamim omrim, ze v'ze pasul v'ein bo kores. Rabbi Yehuda disagreed and said that this is the principle. If the improper intent with regard to the time preceded the intent with regard to the area, the offering is pigul and one is liable to receive karet for eating it. And if the intent with regard to the area preceded the intent with regard to the time, the offering is disqualified and it does not include liability to receive karet. And the rabbis say, in both this case, where the intent with regard to time came first, and that came where the intent with regard to the area came first, the offering is disqualified and it does not include liability to receive karet. If his intent was to eat half an olive bulk and to burn half an olive bulk not at the appropriate time or the appropriate area, the offering is valid because eating and burning do not join together. Okay, it's the Mishnah and now the Talmud. The Gemara says, Gemara, the sages taught a braita with regard to the verse pertaining to a burnt offering, and the priest shall bring it to the altar and pinch off its head and make it smoke on the altar. Leviticus 1:15. What is the meaning when the verse states, and the priest shall bring it to the altar? Since the previous verse states that he shall bring his offering, this verse should have started with the phrase, and he shall pinch off its head. יכול המית נעדב אוב לא לפחות משני פרידים תמה למה והקריבו Since it is stated in the preceding verse, and if his offering to the Lord be a burnt offering of birds, then he shall bring his offering of doves or pigeons. Leviticus 1:14. One might have thought that one who donates a bird as an offering may not donate fewer than 2 birds. Therefore, the verse states, and the priest shall bring it, indicating that one may bring even 1 bird to be sacrificed on the altar. The Braita continues analyzing the verse. What is the meaning when the verse states that the priest shall bring it to the altar, Leviticus 1:15, to establish that only a priest may pinch his nape, as one might have thought that even a non-priest may perform this procedure? Could this not be derived through logical inference, and if with regard to a sheep burnt offering, with regard to which the verse established that it must be slaughtered in the north, see Leviticus 1:11, and it did not establish that it must be slaughtered by a priest, see 32a. And then in the case of a burnt offering, with regard to which the verse did not establish that his nape must be pinched in the north, is it not logical that the verse does not establish that his nape must be pinched by a priest? To counter this, the verse states, and the priest shall bring it to the altar in order to establish that its nape must be pinched specifically by a priest. Yachom yam lekenu basakim v'dinhu ma'im shchita shelo kavar hakohen kavar hagli balika shekavar hakohen and din shekavar hagli. The Braita continues, one might have thought that the priest should pinch its nape with a knife, and one could derive this through a logical inference. And if with regard to slaughtering, with regard to which the verse did not establish it, that it must be performed by a priest, established that it must be performed with an instrument, so a knife, being a knife, then in the case of pinching, which the verse established that it must be performed by a priest, is it not logical that the verse establishes that it must be performed with an instrument? Talmud Lomer Kohen Umalak Kohen Umalak Kohen Umalak. Wow. Okay. Talmud Lomer Kohen Umalak. Talmud Lomar Kohen Umalak Omri Kiva Pita Ladas Shazar Karav Lugavi Mizbeach Elama Talmud Lomar Kohen Shete Malika Basmo Shel Kohen. To counter this, the verse states, and the priest shall bring it near the altar and pinch off its head. In explanation of this verse, Rabbi Akiva said, could it enter your mind that a non-priest may approach the altar in order to sacrifice an offering? Since this is impossible, the verse does not need to state that the sacrificial rite is performed by a priest. Rather, what is the meaning when the verse states the priest? It means that the pinching must be performed with the very body of the priest. Yachol yamlikenu ben milamala ben bilvat tamalama umalak miktiv ma haktav berosh hamizbeach af malika berosh hamizbeach. The Braita continues to analyze the verse. One might have thought that the priest may pinch the bird's nape, whether above the red line of the altar or below it. To counter this, the verse states, and the priest shall bring it unto the altar and pinch off its head and make it smoke on the altar. The first juxtaposes the pinching of the burning of the bird on the altar to teach that just as the burning occurs at the top of the altar, so too the pinching occurs on the top part of the wall of the altar. Umalak mimul oref ata omer mimul oref o eno אלא מן הצבעו, בדינו נאמר כאן מלאק, ונאמר אהלן מלאק מלאהלן, ממול עורב, אף כאן ממול עורב. The Braita continues, the verse states that the priest shall pinch off its head, which must be performed at the nape. Do you say that the pinching occurs at the nape, or is it only at the throat? It can be derived through a logical inference. It is stated here with regard to a bird burnt offering and pinch off its head, Leviticus 1:15, and then it is stated there with regard to a burnt sin offering and pinch off its head opposite its nape, but shall not separate, Leviticus 5:8. Just as there the head is pinched at the nape, so to here the head is pinched at the nape. Ima lahal molek eno mavdi lav kam molek eno mavdi otam lava. ולהקריס מה להלה מה כתב ראש בעצמו והגוף עצמו אף מניקה ראש בעצמו והגוף עצמו. If the halacha of a burnt offering is derived from that of a burnt sin offering, perhaps it should be also derived that just as there the priest pinches off the head but does not separate it completely from the body, so too here with regard to a burnt offering he pinches off the head but does not separate it from the body. To capture this, the verse states, with regard to a burnt offering, pinch off its head and make it smoke on the altar. Leviticus 1:15. This indicates that just as with regard to the burning of the burnt offering, the head is burned by itself and the body is burned by itself, so too with regard to the pinching, its head is by itself and the body is by itself. Meaning the head is completely detached from the body. ומנין שהקטרס הראש בעצמו וגוף בעצמו שנאמר בקריאתו, הרי הקטרס הגוף אמורה מה אני מקיים בקטיר מספיחה בהקטרס הראש הכתוב בבר. Excuse me. The writer continues, and from where is it derived that the burning of the head is by itself and the body is burned by itself? As it is stated, and he shall rend it by its wings, and the priest shall make it smoke upon the altar. Leviticus 1:17. Since the burning of the body is stated in this verse, how do I realize the meaning of the earlier phrase, and make it smoke on the altar? Leviticus 1:15. Let's conclude that the verse is speaking about the burning of the head. The writer continues to expound the verse stated with regard to a burnt offering, and the blood shall be drained out on the wall of the altar. Leviticus 1:15. Then the verse states, and this blood shall be drained out. It means that all of it must be drained out. The continuation of the verse indicates that it must be drained out on the wall of the altar, not on the wall of the ramp, nor on the wall of the sanctuary. And which wall of the altar is this? Is the upper wall, meaning above the red line. Okay. או אינו מכיר את התחתון ודין הוא מה באים שחטס למעלה או לסע למטה או שחטס או למטה אינו דין שלו למעלה. Or perhaps the verse is referring only to the lower wall below the red line, and this can be supported by a logical inference, and if with regard to an animal after offering where the blood of its sin offering is applied above the red line, the blood is burned of its burnt offering is applied below the red line, and then with regard to a burnt offering where the blood of its sin offering is sprinkled below the red line, is it not logical that the blood of its burnt offering is sprinkled below the red line? Umalak v'hiktir. מילים צדמות חיתה לה על דעת מלאך השקר חוזר וממצא אלא לא אמר לך מה הקטר בראש המזבח אף מצוי בראש המזבח כך כיצד העולה בכבש ופונה לסובב ובלדון לכהן דאויניס מזרחיס היום מלאגת ראשה ממול ומבדיל וממצא מדם על קיר המזבח אם אז שמתם רגל ואפילו עמה כשרו. To counter this, the verse states, and pinch off his head and make it smoke on the altar, and his blood shall be drained out. Could it enter your mind that after he has burned the bird, the priest goes back and drains out his blood? Rather, the verse serves to tell you that just as the burning occurs atop the altar, so too the draining occurs on top of the altar house. So the priest would ascend the ramp and turn the surrounding ledge and arrive at the southeast corner. He would pinch off the bird's head at its nape and separate it from his body. He would then squeeze out its blood on the wall on the altar beside him. Nevertheless, if the priest performed the squeezing below his feet, meaning below the surrounding ledge, even 1 cubit beneath the ledge, this is about Rabbi Nehemiah, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yaakov אומרים, כל עצמה אינה שאת אלא בראש מזבח מעינינו. The writer continues by citing a dissenting opinion. Rabbi Nehemiah, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yaakov say the entire rite of a burnt offering is performed only atop the altar. The Gemara asks, since the first Tana and Rabbi Nehemiah and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agreed that the bird must be burnt atop the altar and his blood must be squeezed on the top part of the wall of the altar, what is the difference between them? Abai and Rabbi both say there's a difference with regard to whether one may form arrangement of wood on the surrounding ledge and burn the bird there. According to the first Tana, it is permitted when needed, and therefore it is valid if the priest squeezes out his blood onto the wall up to a cubit below the surrounding ledge. According to Rabbi Nehemiah and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, one may never enter the burn of the bird on the surrounding ledge, and therefore it is not valid if the priest squeezed out the blood below the surrounding ledge. Ba l'gov Kulei Torah behavior as Muraso Minotsa Zu Zefek. The Mishnah teaches that after the priest throws the bird's head onto the fire on the altar, he arrives at the body and removes the crop and the feathers attached to it, and the innards that emerge with them, and tosses them into the place of the ashes. The sage is taught in a Braita with regard to the verse pertaining to a bird burnt offering, and he shall take away murato with his feathers. Leviticus 1:16. This word murato is referring to the crop. Yachal yakir b'sakim b'nu. Tamanoma minutzasav et sinora imach. Gam avi ben Chanan omer. Notel Urbana Imam. Had the verse written only in its crop, one might have thought that he might have thought that the priest may cut off the skin with a knife and take the crop without any other part of it. Therefore, the verse states with its feathers, which indicates that he takes the feathers with it, and he must remove the skin from the skin with the feathers are still attached. The Gemara presents another question. Abba Yosef ben Hanan says he takes the crop and he so takes its gizzard with it. Tvei Rabbi Shmuel amar Benatzosa benos shela kodra sakin keminaruba. A sage from the school of Rabbi Ishmael taught the word benotzata is a contradiction of the word benotza shela, meaning its feathers. This teaches that the priest cuts it with a knife, creating an opening like a window opposite the crop. This allows him to move the crop without only the feathers and the skin directly opposing it. That is what he brings to the place of the ashes. This concludes 65a.